Swaddling from Sydney, Australia, and I'll be hosting for the next 3 hours. So just a little bit of protocol. You all look like you're really behaving yourselves, but please mute yourself if you're not speaking. If you want to talk, please raise your hand and unmute yourself. And if you're typing into chat, make sure your microphone's off so we don't all hear your keyboard. These sessions are being recorded, so if for some reason you don't want to be included in the recording, just make sure your video's off. Okay, so yeah, and the other thing is just before I introduce the next presenters, we remember old John the Apostle when they used to wheel him out in the wheelchair. And all he used to say to people was, "My children, love one another." Okay, so we have Ben, Pato and Antoinette. They're going to do the next presentation, and I'll just give you a brief introduction to them. Ben Bowler found the Urantia book in Birmingham, UK in 2001, and the teachings have been a key inspiration for his work ever since. After seeing a Mark Bloomfield keynote presentation at the Urantia Association conference in 2006 in Sydney, Ben and his wife Yildo were inspired to move to the Thai-Burma border as volunteers with the Free Schools project. And that's a project that Mark was involved in organising with children in third world countries, giving them free education. Okay, so and then they were moved to the Thai-Burma border as volunteers with the Free Schools. Ben went on to create Monk for the Month, Muslims for a Month in Turkey, and other spiritual immersion programs around the world. He is the convener of a festival which has occurred in Thailand, and the festival is called U-Day. Which has occurred in Thailand, Ethiopia, and the Holy Land. Ben is the founder of iGod.com and is the executive director of Unity Earth. And Pato and Antoinette, Pato Banton and his wife Antoinette Rootsdawtah, are both world-renowned and Grammy-nominated reggae musicians. And there they are down there. Good. Ben's here and Pato and Antoinette's there. Excellent. Okay. And they're very keen students and teachers and international ambassadors of the Urantia books. Recipients of the Unity Earth Keepers of the Flame Award, officially appointed Goodwill Ambassadors of the Golden Rule, official members of the Evolutionary Leaders Circles, a dynamic and visionary project of the Source of Synergy Foundation, members of the Global United Religious Initiative, and recent recipients of the URI Herms Award for creative collaboration and communications with other cooperation circles around the world. So these guys are really keen students of the Urantia book, and they're involved in the interfaith movement. So I'd like to hand you over to Ben and Pato and Antoinette. And just be aware, guys, to keep our schedule happening. You've got an hour, so just keep an eye on the time. All righty, over to you, Ben.
Beautiful. Thank you, Trevor. Good to see you and good to see everybody here. It's great to be with you guys. Good to see some familiar faces and really delighted to be a part of the program. And very, very honored to be doing it with Pato and Antoinette. So the way we're going to do this is Pato's going to share his screen. We've got a presentation loaded on Pato's side. So whoever's controlling the slide deck, that'd be great. And we're going to talk our way through it. We've called out our, and thanks for that introduction, Trevor. I think certainly in my journey, the Sydney UAI International Conference, where I saw Mark Bloomfield speak, and then responded to his call to go to Thailand, was a pivotal moment for me personally. and for so much of the work that I've been involved with since. So it's great to be back here with the family. What I've really learned over the last 10 years is that there is such a thing that can be rightfully called the World Unity Movement. One of the questions we might start with is, does the Urantia book teach that a movement towards world unity is something that is good to be involved in? And I certainly think that, throughout the course of this presentation, Pato and Antoinette and myself will show that it most certainly is. And the different kinds of unity, spiritual unity and towards an eventual political unity, are something that we feel very, very called to and driven to. And as we have met other organizations and other groups and people that are doing this inspiring work, it's only really creates more enthusiasm and more energy to get involved. So Pato and Antoinette and I first got involved back in 2012 when we did the first U-Day Festival in Thailand. And Trevor, it looks like your screen, I'm not sure which one's going out live, but it's I'm getting you on the screen, but that's fine too. But we started in Thailand with the U-Day Festival, and from there we have just met so many different groups around the world. And Pato, if you could flick to the next slide, we'll see some of the groups are represented in this beautiful series of Kumu maps. So we just wanted to show and to share that when we talk, this is just a sample. This was one of the events we're involved in at the Parliament of World's Religions in 2018. Been lucky enough to be to the Parliament of Religions in Melbourne, where many of you were there as well, in Salt Lake City, where we launched onegod.com with Pato and Antoinette and other musicians. And onegod.com is very much in tune with the message of the Urantia book as well. And then, at least from our understanding of what the Urantia book is teaching. And so there at the Parliament of World Religions in Toronto, we had convened the conveners and a unifying. If you zoom, you can look at these organizations. There you've got the United Religions Initiative. Many people, by the way, are inspired by the Urantia book at the URI, leaders that are there. Of course, you've got the Charter for Compassion, where Gar Jameson is such a leader at the Charter of Compassion, is on the board. Unify are a key group. Miranda Clendenning has been instrumental in there. So we've seen that people that are inspired by the Urantia book are taking up positions as leaders and teachers in the movement, loose movement towards justice, unity, peace, compassion on the planet. It's a tremendously inspiring thing. It involves music and events and inspiration, as well as programs and initiatives. It's beyond counts. If anyone's familiar with the Paul Hawken book, Blessed Unrest, we know that there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of groups of all sizes that are working in their own way towards ecological restoration, justice, intercultural harmony, peace and unity. It is a epic and profound and movement of historic proportions. So to be involved in it and to be involved in it with other people that are inspired by the Urantia book is a great joy and a great thrill. So this was just a snapshot of what we had done in Toronto back in 2018, just to give you an idea of how many different groups, even the one We the World have been doing the Global Days of Unity for 15 years. And the more we learned, the more we realized how little we knew about what was happening in the world and how much is going on from Africa to Europe to Australia to America to everywhere. And the more people we got to know, their commitment and their faith and the inspirational devotion to really do something good for humanity has been certainly the ride of a lifetime. This is another one in New York, which we had done on the United Nations World Interfaith Harmony Week in February 2019 last year. And again, many different leaders and groups and organizations were represented as this movement grows and develops and connects and empowers each other. So just to give you a snapshot through these Kumas, these are individuals representing various organizations. And it's definitely, as I said before, a number of people that are working in this space inspired by the Urantia book and the Urantia revelation, and many who are inspired by their own spirituality and their own faith tradition and their own sense of calling and mission and relationship to God. So very, very inspiring work. And this is just to give you one little snapshot of how broad the movement is. Even coming up to the 75th anniversary of the signing of the UN Charter, it's interesting that I was given a book by Derek Grimm called The Anatomy of Peace by Emery Reeves, which was written in 1945. And it turns out it's the source material, thanks to Matthew Block. We know this. It's the source material for the Urmia lectures on political sovereignty. And it's an amazing read, The Anatomy of Peace, and just how long this movement has been going to create transnational, interfaith, multi-faith, human unity, planetary consciousness. It is a big story and it's ongoing, and we're entering a very, very pivotal period of time. So Pato, you've been side by side throughout the whole journey, from Thailand to events in Ethiopia, launching One God in Salt Lake City at the Parliament of World Religions, to our experience in the Holy Land just a few months ago in February. And a lot of that's been based on the interfaith teachings of the Urantia book, as we go to the next slide. And a lot of the inspiration that we draw from the very clear message in the Urantia book to be about connecting bonds of friendship and understanding between the religions. And we're very blessed to be working with Indigenous leaders from every continent and different religious people. The United Religions Initiative themselves being a global partner for Unity Earth, Religions for Peace, the Parliament of World Religions, and their directors are dear friends as well. So this is a very powerful, very strong movement. Groups like Eco Peace in the Middle East are doing extraordinary work as well. And this is just a snapshot of when we were at the Baha'i Temple. And you can see the cheeky smile of Pato there in front of our friends from the Buddhist monks from Thailand, and Chief Phil Lane Jr. and so many extraordinary people. The grandson of Haile Selassie was with us, Prince Ermias, Aboriginal people from Australia, very broad collection of religious, spiritual, Indigenous, and activists coming together across the Holy Land. And so this is part of what's been growing. And as I started with, the inspiration from Revelation is an extremely important part of certainly what drives us, for me personally and for Pato and Antoinette. So Pato, I'm going to throw now over to you to take us further into this inspiration from Revelation.
Do you want me to play the first video yet, or do you want me to just carry on?
Oh, yeah, sure. Maybe that's a good way, Pato, to really set the scene. Thanks for that. Yeah, we've got a video loaded, which will give you a bit of a taster of the journey of Unity Earth over the last 4 or 5 years or so, starting with our Aboriginal brothers up in Lake Mungo here in Australia, where there's been continuous living culture and continuous spiritual culture for 45,000 years, which as Urantians, we can say was before the advent of Adam and Eve. Here in Western New South Wales, fully modern humans were discovered, and their descendants were a part of returning those human remains. And this is a video about their story.
All right, here we go.
We see you, Pato and Ant. We don't see the screen.
We Aboriginal people are universal.
Sorry. Let me just go back to sharing the screen.
Cool.
Yeah, the screen is up. I can see it.
All right. So the screen is there?
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
You had it.
All right. So can you guys see the video now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Awesome.
Because I can see it from here.
All right. Here we go.
We Aboriginal people are universal. Our dreaming doesn't separate heaven from earth, as we are connected to the universe from the ground, our mother, to the trees, to the animals, to the sky, to the stars, to the sun and the moon.
I can hear it call, and they run through me their song, and I can feel their spirits as they're singing me back home to travel across the land. Of our people still so strong to take it either back to where we belong. So let's stand up together. Bring your problems to our fire. Let's stand up together and bring the spirit back to life as we stand. so high. Let's stand together as I'll try for the night. Unity, rise as unity. Unity, rise.
We are born with connection to our ancestors for our blood. Our hearts beat the same, whether or not we are conscious of it. Our ancestor spirit carries it and is connected to our spirits, just as every generation before. Our blood and our spirit is our key, not the color of our skin.
One by one we'll take it to the top. A message from my king. Till we get there, we won't stop. Won't you sing with me, my sister? Yes, sing with me, my friend. Sing with me, my brother. As one till the end. Let's stand up together. Bring your torches to our fire. Let's stand up together. And bring the spirit back to life as we place them in the sand. Like the eagle that's so high. Let's stand out together. And I'll try so tonight. Well, you is for universal unity. Negotiations for peace are necessary. I instill international integrity to turn the tides of Thailand. Why? Because that's the way it should be when we all stand together universally.
Close your eyes and imagine it. Feel it as your spirit comes into consciousness. Connect to your ancestors. No matter where you are, you will always have your connection to your country and your ancestors. As your ancestor spirit will never leave you. Trust in it and let it guide you. We are all brothers and sisters in a global community. Let us unite. Justice, peace, harmony for all.
Stand up together. Bring your torches to our fire. Let's stand together. And bring that spirit back to life as we raise them in the sky. Like the eagle that's so high. Let's stand together. And I'll try so tonight. Unity, sons of unity. Unity.
All right, Pato, over to you, brother.
Thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to enlarge this again. Oh, sorry. Let me pause the video so that we don't get interrupted. All right, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Well, before I start, I just want to say much love to everyone on the conference call today. And thank you to Chris and his team for hosting this. It's really amazing. And we're going to tune into this as much as we can for this 24-hour period. And thank you to Ben Bowler for including us in his presentation. We're really excited to be here today. What I want to say as well before I start is what was interesting about our trip to Ethiopia was, I think, well, how many Buddhist monks were there, Ben? About 9, was it?
There's a handful, yeah, a handful of them, yeah.
About nine guys walking around in orange. And we thought that, you know, they were the biggest religious group amongst us. There was 50 of us and 9 of them.
60 of us.
Was it 60?
Yeah.
All right. 60 of us traveling across Ethiopia. And we thought we were outnumbered, or that the biggest group was the Buddhists. And when we actually did a count up, we went around and asked everybody what their belief was.
Mhm.
And when we counted everybody up, there was actually 12 Urantians.
Urantia delegation.
We ended up calling them Urantia delegation, but they were just quiet, you know. They wasn't wearing any concentric circles. You wouldn't have known because they just kind of blended in with everybody else until we went around and asked everybody what the foundation of their belief was. So even in our multi-faith outreach across the world, there's still so many people who read the Urantia book, and a lot of the heads and directors of the multi-faith movements are discreet Urantians too. So, you know, you're finding us everywhere, and it's a beautiful thing, you know, to see us involved in so much diversity. Anyway, I'm here with my beautiful wifey, Antoinette, and we're going to do this little section here. So we've got a symbol here showing some of the different religions on our planet, and we've put the UB circles in the middle. And the first quote we'd like to share, which has inspired us, you know, is inspiration from Revelation, which is our theme today. And the Urantia book has been our source of inspiration for years. And some people have wondered, why are we involved with multi-faith? So we want to share a few quotes to just kind of let people know why and why it's so important to us. The first quote says, the religion of the Spirit requires only unity of experience, uniformity of destiny, making full allowance for diversity of belief. This diversity of belief, you know, is what used to separate me from a lot of different religionists, because I was like a hardcore Urantia book reader and couldn't really see the commonality until I really got involved with doing multi-faith and then realized that what links us all together is our spirituality, not so much our philosophy or theology, you know. And so this is a beautiful thing when you can come together with other religionists who believe different things, but they share the same aspirations and goals and spiritual, you know, destiny as you. The many religions of Urantia are all good to the extent that they bring man to God and bring the realization of the Father to man. This is something that we also share. There is not a Urantia religion that could not profitably study and assimilate. This reminds me of the Borg.
Mm-hmm.
The best of the truths contained in every other faith, every other faith, for all contain truth. I think sometimes, you know, as a Urantia book reader, knowing, you know, having faith that the authors are celestial beings, it's easy to fall into the trap of being a religionist of a religion of authority, you know, and it took me a while to get out of that mental attitude of thinking that because my faith is so strong in this Fifipaka revelation that, you know, I should convert everybody to believe what I believe. But, you know, the more I study Jesus's teachings, especially fleeing from
Galilee.
Is, you know, paper 155.
Mm-hmm. The Decapolis tour.
Second discourse on true religion.
Mm-hmm.
He continually keeps explaining that, you know, nobody should claim one truth, that we should look to everybody and be blessed by everybody's truth, and also stay open-minded and love everybody regardless of our differences of belief, you know. And it's continually helping me. The Urantia book continually guides me in my interfaith work. The last one here says, religionists would do better to borrow the best in their neighbor's living spiritual faith rather than to denounce the worst in their lingering superstitions and outworn rituals. You know, when we travel with the Muslims, they pray 3 times, sometimes 5 times a day. You know, and I think that that is an awesome practice, and I borrow that, you know. The Buddhists love to meditate, and the Urantia book teaches us about worshipful meditation and the importance of worshipful meditation and contemplation. You know, the Native Americans are so close to the earth and nature. You know, that's a beautiful thing that sometimes we need to get back. And the Urantia book also teaches that too, that the greatest blessing is to be in touch with the earth. And so all of these different traditions, you know, they all have a little bit, you know, of beauty, truth, beauty, and goodness within them. They're all beautiful, but they all contain something that when you put them all together, these bits of greatness all together, you have something very awesome. And if you assimilate it, it becomes really beneficial to our spiritual growth. Here's a picture of us traveling across, this is the group that was traveling across the Holy Land in, what month was that, February?
February.
February 1st to February the 7th.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a very interesting situation. When we got to this mosque, it was a very political situation and very, very tense situation, because they didn't want this diverse religious group to come onto this Muslim ground. So when we got off the steps from taking our picture and got onto the Muslim temple grounds, and they saw us hugging each other and smiling and laughing, they asked us not to show any affection for each other. And this whole group is a touchy-feely hugging group, you know, so we had to try our best to socially distance ourselves before we even had the coronavirus outbreak. But it was a beautiful, beautiful trip. We traveled on 3 buses, and it was just an amazing group of sharing and caring. And we had lots of great conversations with different religionists who were asking us about the Urantia book too. And so it was really, really an awesome experience, you know, of unity in diversity. All right, so I'm going to pass you over to Antoinette now, who has selected some quotes that she'd like to share.
One of the things that I wanted to say was, since I started reading the Urantia book, I started studying the Urantia book in 2009. And at that time, my goal was to have everybody study and read the Urantia book. That was my thing. It's like, who does not know about the Urantia book? And how do we share this Urantia book all over wherever we go? You know, this is all I want to do, is just do outreach and share the Urantia book. And then after a while, I started to learn that that sharing the Urantia book was important to me, but can we just get along became another quest for me. You know, that became even way more important. Since we started working with Ben back in 2012, and then with Gar Jameson, they were showing me different ways about interfaith and why it was so important. I was like, because we even have intolerance within our own Urantia community. You know, they don't want to talk about it, but it's being spoken a lot about it, because I do a lot of work on social media. I spend a lot of time with the outreach, and I hear, you know, the things that how people view and perceive things. And we all study this book. And for us not to be able to understand why can't we all get along with all these religionists, especially when the Urantia book is the biggest supporter of interfaith. There's no other spiritual books that will talk about interfaith as much as the Urantia book actually talks about. So I'm hoping that with our mentality and our mindsets of how we are in the Urantia movement, that we are much more open and tolerant to hearing about other people's faiths, because a lot of people just feel like, unless Jesus said it, I don't want to have anything to do with it. But there's a lot of things that a lot of people said that Jesus said as well too. There were a lot of, that's what I started finding out and learning from the rest of these people, was that we're all basically saying the same thing. So this is where we're getting to. Yes.
All right.
Anyway, so this is from one of my favorite papers, because I'm always doing papers or presentations on these subjects. From paper 52, religious revelation is essential to the realization of brotherhood on Urantia. While Jesus has shown the way to the immediate attainment of spiritual brotherhood, the realization of social brotherhood on your world depends much on the achievement of the following transformations on planetary adjustment. So this is how we're going to get ourselves into light and life and stuff. And this is what I totally love about this paper. Social fraternity. multiplication of international and interracial social contacts and fraternal associations through travel, commerce, and competitive play, development of a common language, and the multiplication of multilinguists, the racial and national interchange of students, teachers, industrialists, and religious philosophers. And I think that's what's really nice about when we come together with Unity Earth, that we have everybody who's speaking different language, yet we're still using one language to communicate with each other, and that is through English. And then we're also learning a little bit of everybody else's language, you know, like I learned Shukra while we was in the Holy Land, you know, or we learned different things in Ethiopia. The teachers and the students. So we have young and old people. We have different faiths, different philosophers. The Holy Water experience was really amazing because that actually brought 3 interfaith groups together in work, in peace. And that's why they call it Eco Peace Middle East, because 3 different religious groups were decided to put aside their political differences and their spiritual differences and actually come together for the good of humanity. So the more people that we're actually like linking up and reaching out with or working with, it's like, we can do this. And by setting the example that people can sit there and say, well, look, these Muslims and these Jews are getting along, these Buddhists, all of these people are having a great time. They're spreading love. And that was, it took notice everywhere that we went, whether it was Ethiopia or India or the Holy Land. It always made front page news. They're like, who the hell are these people? And what are they doing? You know, because it's like, look, they're happy, they're bubbly, they're smiling, nobody's arguing.
No,
we didn't have
a demonstration of unity.
A demonstration of unity, and not one argument and not one debate about any of the principles that we have within our philosophies and stuff. All right, number 2, intellectual cross-fertilization. There must occur an exchange of national and racial literature. Each race must become familiar with the thought of all races. Each nation must know the feelings of all nations. Ignorance breeds suspicion, and suspicion is incompatible with the essential attitude of sympathy and love. This is very, very important because, like I said, you know, we have a lot of Islamophobia going on out there. We have a lot of Jewphobia going on out there, anti-Semitism. You know, we have people who are prejudiced based on people's color or cultural backgrounds. And then people feel like they don't need to know because it's not their color or their religion or their race. When they have Black History Month in February, everybody thinks that's just for Black people to know this history. But it's not just for Black people. This is American history. Everybody should be learning about that history because it's all part of American history. So the intellectual cross-fertilization, just like I can learn about European history or learn about European spirituality or learn about Asian spirituality, these are different things that actually kind of tie in together, and it makes us less suspicious of each other, and it makes us less ignorant of each other. And the racial literature is like, look at Rumi. There's so much good Rumi quotes, but people can't stand to hear anything because he's Muslim. So it's like, it's true though, but you won't find anything that he's saying that's really negative or intolerant or anything like that. And a lot of his stuff, and we've learned that from our own ministry, is that when people come in from different faiths, how much there is actually so compatible with the Urantia book teachings. But if we don't actually put ourselves with them, we'll never ever be able to hear or learn. All right, ethical awakening. Only ethical consciousness can unmask the immorality of human intolerance and the sinful and sinfulness of fratricidal strife. Only a moral conscience can condemn the evils of national envy and racial jealousy. Only moral beings will ever seek for that spiritual insight, which is essential to living the golden rule. That whole golden rule thing, I just really, really love. And since we've had Ambassador Musi Hailu, who's been studying the Urantia book since 1972, this man does conflict resolutions in Africa and Rwanda and Burundi and all these different places. He is the one who has picked the April 5th Golden Rule Day, which is now part of the UN Interfaith Harmony Week. So here he's taking the Urantia book teachings and he's putting it into his daily practical life of like, we need less conflict resolution. We need to spread the principles of the Golden Rule throughout as many places as we possibly can. So this April 5th is now a very, very international holiday going around the world. That's a growing movement. It started 1 year, and within the next year, they had a 24-hour broadcast from all over the world as well too. But that takes that ethical awakening, that moral consciousness, that to sit there and say, let's take these teachings and not just study them, but let's go out into the world and move more forth with what we actually know. Because a lot of people just don't hear this, and the more we share it, you know, the better we are. The better we are. All right, political wisdom. Wise statesmen will sometimes work for the welfare of humanity, even while they strive to promote the interests of their national or racial groups. Selfish political sagacity is ultimately suicidal, destructive of all those enduring qualities which ensure planetary group survival. This is something that I noticed that even within the political field, and I've always said, it's like the more that we teach the Urantia book or spread the teachings, that we always want to sit there and come at the youth, because it's really hard to teach old people to, you know, new tricks and to come out of their old and settled ways. But the more that we have that same political wisdom, there was another UB reader that we met years ago, and he was in his early 20s, but eventually he ran for city council. And he started to work his way up the political stream based on the teachings of the Urantia book, because he's like, I need to help my community. And right now, these politicians are not doing anything for the people within my community. So things have got to change. And I want to take the principles from the Urantia book and put them inside of my community and run for office and start taking out all these other people out. He's probably one of the youngest politicians that I've ever met, but the way he was working his campaigns and his rallies, I was just like, I can never be more prouder, because here he is like, this is what we got to do. I studied this, I'm learning about this, I continue to study this, now I got to get people involved, you know, and we have to sit there and try to move forward. Mm-hmm. All right, number 5, spiritual insight. The quickest way to realize the brotherhood of man on Urantia is to effect the spiritual transformation of present-day humanity. Mutual understanding and fraternal love are transcendent civilizers and mighty factors in the worldwide realization of the brotherhood of man. Mm-hmm. And I think that's like, you know, our whole end goal, our whole end game, or at least, you know, what we want to try to do within our lifetime, as much as we possibly can and stuff. You know.
Right. You want to carry on?
Yeah, it's all right. So,
yeah, I'm going to let Ben touch on
this. This is my favorite paper.
Yeah, awesome. I feel your enthusiasm, Antoinette. It's so wonderful. So this is, of course, the Urantia lectures, translated and updated in modern phraseology, as they say. And even, again, the source material, for those that are wondering, is The Anatomy of Peace by Emery Reeves. Amazing. And let me just say, it's the 75th anniversary coming up of the signing of the UN Charter. If you're not familiar with the UN Charter, it's good to go in and have a look at it, just to check it out. But this is the best thing we've got, or the least worst thing we've got right now to manage international relations and war. As it says, this is Jesus' teaching in the Urantia lectures, translated for our time. War on Urantia will never end so long as nations cling to the elusive notions of unlimited national sovereignty. This is such a powerful, powerful truth. And it goes on to say there are only 2 levels of relative sovereignty on an inhabited world: the spiritual free will of the individual mortal and the collective sovereignty of mankind as a whole. There ain't nothing else exists. The rest is illusion. So war is not man's great and terrible disease. War is a symptom, a result. The real disease is the virus of national sovereignty. The real virus we should be worried about is nationalism. Nationalism run wild, and you see it all over the world. All over the world. It has spread, and it is infected and infecting cultures and minds and mindsets all over the world. Tribalism, the unholy alliance of nationalism and religion, we see in so many parts of the world. You cannot prevent nations going to war as long as they remain infected with the delusional virus of national sovereignty. Now, that's some pretty strong language and very, very powerful. The chief cohesive force for resisting the disintegration of antagonism. Sorry, I've lost that one. You might want to pick that one up, Ant. So I've Tried to open it on my iPad, but I've covered it by the screen. Do you want to read that one?
Yeah, go on, you read it.
You cannot prevent nations going to war.
This one.
Oh, the chief cohesive force resisting this disintegration of antagonism is nationalism. And nationalism is the chief barrier to world peace.
So we feel this is really clear direction for us in working. And again, there's two spheres here. There's the spiritual unity or the interfaith or interspiritual movements, which is about bringing cultures and religions closer together, surrendering sovereignty to God. There is a problem when people's loyalty are to their institution first and foremost, in every sense. And so surrendering sovereignty to God is the way that we can all get along and be in a community of faith as we go forward. And then you've got the political aspect, and it's super clear. I mean, it can't be any more clear that nationalism is a problem. Nationalism is the chief barrier to peace. I ain't mincing their words. It's very, very powerful. Yeah. And so would be great with there's about 70 people in the Zoom room here, Pato and Antoinette. We get a chance. There might be some questions people might want to ask you, or comments people might want to have. But did you want to pick up? Where did you want to go from here, Pete?
Questions? Or?
Well, I'm going to let Antoinette. I'm going to skip this one. Okay. People can see it, and in the recording later, if people want to pause this, they can see it too.
Beautiful photo.
This is another beautiful photos of praying together.
That was at the Dead Sea.
And there's another quote to support us bringing people together to pray together. Yeah. And then I think this one is very important as far as someday religionists will get together and actually effect cooperation on the basis of unity of ideals and purposes, rather than attempting to do so on the basis of psychological opinions and theological beliefs. Goals rather than creeds should unify religionists. I think you wanted to say something about expanding this circle that we have here, Ben.
Yeah, so these 10,000 groups, these 100,000 groups, these million groups that are existing, there really are countless, limitless numbers of people who are alive on the planet today who have felt a call, to justice, who have felt a call to work for peace in their own way, each in different and unique ways. And part of the work that we're involved in is connecting and empowering these different groups and these different elements. And it is amazing just how much you get to see of what people are doing. Building up to the 75th anniversary of the signing of the UN Charter, which is coming up in late June. Also around the solstice, World Peace and Prayer Day has been going since 1996. Chival Looking Horse, the United Nations International Day of Yoga. So many great things are happening around one week in June. So together with the Parliament of World's Religions and the United Religions Initiative, one of the biggest global grassroots interfaith, in fact, probably the biggest in the world, and our friends at Unify and many, many other organizations, the Sign Network and so many. We've come together as civil society to declare World Unity Week from 20th to 27th of June. Happy to announce that Pato and Antoinette are World Unity Week ambassadors, along with some amazing friends and organizations around the planet. And really, again, to build up towards celebrating the signing of the UN Charter. How do we go forward from here? How do we take these ideals? In our case, in our community here, this group, we've imbibed from the Urantia revelation. How do we take that and manifest it in a way that makes sense for each individual and for each person who's putting their skills and talents and energy and time and resources into advancing the evolutionary program here on our beloved home world? And so this World Unity Week itself is a stepping stone towards September and the International Day of Peace, which again is a weekend. It's Monday, the 21st of September. So the whole weekend is from the 19th through to the 21st. And there's a Declaration of Peace weekend globally to really, again, honor, to connect and unite and empower all these different initiatives, all these different groups, starting with the indigenous wisdom, building up to the revelations of faith and our religious traditions, and then all the way through to the diplomatic spaces that need to evolve in an urgent way. So this is something we would call on you to participate in, to connect with, to be aware of, to learn more about, and to find ways to engage. It could be something as simple as, you know, doing a song. Someone here in the group just developed a new rap song in German about motor, which is awesome. So it's exciting to see. Things are developing. That creativity is our greatest hope. Our ability to work shoulder to shoulder, you know, heart to heart, hand in hand with faith and trust and love is our great hope. And if not that, then where is our hope? You know, and I think that there's a great case to be made here for all of us to really come together and support these global initiatives and our friends around the world that are doing great work and have been doing them for so long. Parliament of World Religions has been going since 1893. You know, this is something that has got an incredible track record and history. And I think with the energy and leadership of Pato, Antoinette, and you know, many other people around the world, we are getting somewhere. We are building momentum. We are gaining traction, and we'd invite you to connect with us. We would love more Urantia inspired brothers and sisters to connect with us and come with us. I do think there are a couple of hands up that looks like people may have a question. And I think that we've got Jetta Rattigan first, and then Julian McGarry from Tasmania. Good to have you with us, Julian, and also doing great unity work, interfaith work in Tasmania. But I think it looks like Jetta had your hand up first. Did you have a question for the panel?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, hello. I think the presentation was beautiful. One love, okay? I do want to just, I had a little concern because I think that even though we do need to unite as a world, I don't feel that we need to dismantle our own cultures, because we are, you know, we were created to be who we are. And if we're of Asian culture, that's who we are. If we're African culture, that's who we are. If we're European, and we're proud of that culture. You know, we're proud of who we are, but we do need to learn to work together, no matter what our backgrounds are. So I feel that not to dismantle who we are, but to show love and compassion for the diversity that we are, because in Urantia, it does say when we're in the Urantia state, we are going to encounter different beings, so unlike ourselves. So we have to learn to get along with one another in this realm, on this planet, and appreciate the diversity of each other. You know, so to me, I love the one world, the one love, because that's where we need to be. But I also love that you're Asian. I love that I'm African. You know, I love that you're European, and we need to learn to love each other.
Exactly.
Oh, right on, Jetta. I'm right there with you. Diversity is a beautiful thing. It's part of.
Go on.
Definitely not dismantling, because when you said my name earlier, Antoinette Rootsdawtah, that was a name I chose for myself. That Rootsdawtah came from a song she's an uptown girl who knows her roots and her culture. Rootsdawtah. If you come to my house, which a lot of people have been, I represent my African roots like crazy. I represent my Asian roots. People know exactly where I'm coming from. And even when you look at all the pictures, we're celebrating our diversity. Yes. And I don't want anybody to not look like or be who they are or their culture. And I think that's one of the things why that group of people is so awesome, because we can just celebrate our uniqueness, unity, not uniformity. I can do a whole paper on that. Okay. Unity, not uniformity. You know, we're uniform in the ideas, but not uniform in our ways that we go about it, you know? Yeah.
I just wanted to say I agree that we should try and get along with everyone. I'm just not sure about the non-breathers.
Prejudice.
They're a big strike.
It's about love. We have to learn how to love each other. We have to do it. Our Creator commands us to love. That's the #1 commandment, to love your neighbor as yourself, no matter who my neighbor is.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Jetta. We got a comment or question from Julian, and we've got a beautiful presentation that Pato made with a whole bunch of incredible organizations that have committed themselves to ending the threat of nuclear war. It's a really practical, grounded you know, kind of outcome of this work. And we really want to show you that, guys. But Julian in Tasmania, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Julian from Tasmania. First of all, wonderful presentation, Ben, Pato and Antoinette. Thank you so much. And congratulations on the association for holding this conference. It's truly wonderful. I just want to draw attention to the way the Urantia book describes Jesus' ministry. From my point of view, I see this as Jesus was an interfaith worker. Prior to his public ministry, he spent a lot of time in Rome and he made friendships with hundreds of people of different faith traditions. And he befriended them. He didn't just see them as being people of a faith, but he befriended them as individuals. And then when I look at what I consider the #1 message of the Urantia book, which is the religion of Jesus or the gospel of the kingdom, the fatherhood or parenthood of God and the one family of the human brotherhood and sisterhood, this lends itself to world unity. This lends itself to interfaith work. I just see the connection so strongly. And I feel this is the future for the planet. I think this message of the kingdom has to be proclaimed. It's not Christianity. It's the original teachings of Jesus, which are all about bringing us all together. So it's more of a comment than a question, Ben. But thanks so much for the presentation. Really wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful, Julian. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think you're right. You're right on. So Pato, did you want to, thank you, Julian, and looking forward to connecting and working with you more. Pato, you want to introduce this next amazing piece of work that you created?
Yes, I do. I just wanted to ask, I just wanted to give Marion a chance to say something. Marion Hughes, before I play the video. We've got about, is it 5 minutes, Chris?
Aloha.
Start the next presentation in 7 minutes.
All right, so Marion, go ahead and then I'll play a piece of this video.
Oh, I don't really have anything to say. I appreciate it, and aloha to everyone. And looks like a wonderful trip and a wonderful organization, and God bless all of you.
All right.
When are you coming to Hawaii after the quarantine? Hey?
Yes, as soon as it's over. We need a break.
Okay, well, I hope I get there too. So you take care.
We're coming to visit everybody.
so I'm going to play this last video for you, okay? I don't know how much of you have heard of Reverend, what's his name, Ben? William? Reverend
Bill Swing.
Reverend Bill Swing, the founder of the United Religions Initiative, which is now, how many organizations? 1,000?
It's over 1,000 organization with over 1 million people in it.
With over 1 million
around the world,
from around the world. And he wrote a prayer, and I devoted a song that they've got an organization called A World Free of Nuclear Weapons. So we filmed this during the
Holy Land trip.
During the Holy Land trip with the members of Unity Earth and the URI and Eco Peace.
And the Parliament of World Religions.
And Parliament of World Religions and the Urantia Movement delegation too. So here's the video. I hope you guys like it, okay? And Chris, you can tell me when if you need to stop it early, okay?
We're voices for a world free of nuclear weapons.
All right, sorry, here we go again.
We're voices for a world free of nuclear weapons. May peace on earth prevail today. May peace on earth prevail. May peace on earth prevail today. May peace on earth prevail. We pray, each day we pray for a world free of nuclear weapons. We pray, Each day we pray for a world free of nuclear weapons. Yes, we're calling all leaders of humanity to end this atomic insanity that turns our human family, jeopardizing our global ecology. We don't want to see another Hiroshima or a deadly accident either. No, no, no. We need a nuclear ban to protect our future generations. We pray, each day we pray for a world free of nuclear weapons. We pray, each day we pray for a world free of nuclear weapons. Yes, we pray each day. We pray, yes, we pray each day. We pray, yes, we pray each day. We pray for a world free of nuclear weapons.
Cloud gutters don't just look bad, they attract birds.
Don't worry about that.
So replace those old gutters with leaf gutters.
We gotta let our leaders know your atomic bombs are the wrong way to go. Respect the nuclear ban treaty and focus on the poor and the needy. We pray each day. We pray for a world free of nuclear weapons. We pray each day. We pray for a world free of nuclear weapons. Yes, we pray each day. We pray, yes, we pray each day. We pray, yes, we pray each day. We pray for a world free of nuclear weapons.
All right.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Chris, by the way, too, I want to mention as well.
Trevor, I think it's Trevor. Oh, Trevor's hosting, yeah.
Oh, no, I want to mention to Chris Wood, though, that we have 2 study Zooms per week now. We've added one on Sunday morning, so that way the UK and Africa can join in with us. And we still have our Wednesday night one at 6 p.m. on a Pacific Coast time. So that's so Wednesdays is thought adjusters. That's the papers that we're actually studying right now. And then the Sundays is right now. I think we're doing government on a neighboring planet, and then we'll probably go back. But that's our weekly studies.
So I think we finished on time. Yay!
Well done.
And I want to say again, thank you, Heavenly Father, for this beautiful revelation that you have gifted to humanity. Thank you for the Urantia book that has been a guide to our lives, an inspiration to us. And thank you for my Urantia community who has taught me so much patience. I love you guys so much. And I wish you all the best during this time of isolation and quarantine. I'm keeping you all in my thoughts and prayers. I love you guys so much. Love
Thank you guys.
Okay, well, look, that was wonderful, guys. So thank you very much for all your good work, and keep it up. Yeah.